I want you to imagine for a second that masturbation could actually be something useful, something that you'd even be proud of. What would that look like? Now, take that question, put it to the side, and I want to get into just the word itself, the etymology. It comes from Latin. Now, some of you who are in this industry or maybe look things up a little bit, oh yeah, it's a Latin word and it means to defile yourself with your hand. Now, let's get into that. The Latin roots, two words, manus, meaning hand, and it is, what is that, stupare. Now, I don't speak Latin. My dad did teach me a little bit of Latin when I was younger, but I did go ahead and look this up because I really wanted to jump into the etymology of this word, because words really matter. They carry a lot of meaning. And stupare means to defile. Now, what does defile mean even? Well, that means to make something that unsacred, to like kind of desecrate it, to sully it, to make it dirty, even dishonor it. Now, if you think about that, some people will kind of go out there and say, oh yeah, well, it's to defile yourself with your hand. No, actually, it means to defile your hand, to dishonor your hand, which I think is a rather interesting concept in and of itself. And it shows that there's been a lot of charge around this. In fact, my grandfather, he would tell us kids this story when he was younger. I don't know if it was grade school or high school or whenever it was that they're giving sex education at his time, but they gave a little booklet out. And in that booklet, under the section of masturbation, there were two pictures. And he remembered them very vividly. On one hand, you had a man's face, which is super wrinkled. I mean, just think like Egyptian hieroglyphics etched across the face. Or the other picture, which was a hairy, not just hand and arm, but a hairy palm. I mean, think about that for a second. They're essentially trying to strongly, I might say, discourage you from masturbation, or him and his classmates, saying that if you do this, it will be evident to everybody. Now, my grandfather being a World War II pilot, flyboy, and apparently rebellious ever since he was young, and definitely saw that growing up with him is one of my best friends. We went out over summer times and did all kinds of stuff, just crazy adventures. Love my grandpa. Now, he would tell me about how he would sing this song, him and his buddies, and they would sing, I don't care if I do die, do die. I just want to make the juice fly, juice fly. Now, I will not go into the details of trying to spell it out for you, what exactly juice fly means and do die, but you get the idea. They were saying that it was such a good thing, no matter even if it did kill them, according to this book, that they were still going to do it. Now, other story for you, there's a group out there called NOFAP. Now, this is interesting because this group, typically conservative religious folks, nothing at all wrong with that, but they are completely against masturbation. Now, they sort of bring together, they conflate, they confuse three different things, which I'm going to go into, but let's just, NOFAP, what does that even mean? I looked it up and it took me a while. I mean, I saw actually the definition pop up, or not even really a definition, but I thought for sure FAP was some kind of acronym. FAP, what could the F, the A, the P stand for? I mean, I know some F words, I know some P words, but nothing really was making sense. And then I realized, well, it was saying that FAP actually is an onomatopoeia, meaning that the word itself, the sound of the word itself, is actually the definition of this made-up word. And that means FAP, 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 the sound that one makes when they masturbate themselves. Now, I don't know who is making that sound when they do it, but nevertheless, as you can see, the group is against masturbating, no fapping, and the way that they think about, maybe that's why they use FAP and the way they go about it, is that they conflate three things. And this is really important that you get this, because for NOFAP, masturbation is equivalent to pornography, which leads to porn addiction, and ejaculation, and specifically ejaculating quickly, which leads to premature ejaculation. So a lot of these guys in that group suffer from both premature ejaculation as well as porn addiction, so they turn to NOFAP. Now, if you were to take even just half a moment and start to scroll through X, or what's formerly known as Twitter, account NOFAP, you would see tons of guys there struggling with masturbation and dedicated to NOFAP, but that they are pendulating back and forth between completely cutting masturbation out of their so-called lifestyle or diet and then binging on it and really struggling with this, whether in a relationship or not in a relationship. And this creates a lot of problems. In fact, they are literally like a pendulum swinging back and forth. And I find that imagery or that analogy rather interesting, this metaphor of a pendulum, because yes, there's the pendulum that swings back and forth, but everyone's seen the kind of steel balls, about 4 of them in the middle and then 2 on the side, and you'll swing the one and it hits the middle and then it knocks the other up to the side and then it swings back down, hits the other. I mean, rather fascinating little thing. And if you think about it, I think that metaphor is quite accurate, because if you have on the one side not masturbating at all, on the other side completely binging on porn, masturbating, going quickly towards ejaculation and going into premature ejaculation, you really have what you do is, you kind of swing one direction, you decide not to do it at all, then you kind of go, maybe I will, and then boom, all of a sudden there's this shock, jump back into porn, and you switch right to the other side, and now you're in this other mentality, swinging up, watching a lot of porn, and then you're like, this is really bad, I'm not supposed to do it, feeling guilty, swinging back, and then boom, all of a sudden you have this shock moment again, you go, I'm never doing that again, and back and forth you go. So, NOFAP. Guys struggling with porn addiction, struggling with premature ejaculation, wanting to completely cut out masturbation from their life, and hoping to do so, save themselves for their marriage or kind of stick to their partner. Meanwhile, they're really kind of tortured. Now, this is interesting because if you were to change that image, how could we imagine if you had a magnet underneath that pendulum, that ball that's swinging back and forth between I love doing it, can't stop myself, and I hate it, never going to do it again. There's a magnet there. It's going to quickly center that ball so that way the pendulation just becomes solid. Well, what could that be? I made a program, made it with Dr. Saida Desolé, and actually called it YEAHFAP, because if you separate masturbation from porn and you separate masturbation from needing to ejaculate just because you got an erection and learn to actually nurture your pleasure as a meditation that brings you into your body, then embodiment becomes that magnet. And guess what happened? Have taken hundreds of men through this 21-day protocol, even have it doctor approved. And what have I found? Not only does it solve premature ejaculation, but interesting enough, it solves delayed ejaculation. It solves sexual shame. It solves lack of energy, people fearing loss of energy from masturbation, actually gain energy from it. It solves the whole issue around shame, solves the issue around not being able to satisfy a partner or finding your partner boring in comparison to porn. So there's just a list of things that it solves. Now, how is it possible that one single protocol that everyone follows, super simple, could affect this? Well, it's because it's putting you back in touch with your body. And when you learn about your body as a system of pleasure, you find actually porn to be boring. Something even more incredible, those that had partners realized that they also became better. So it's not just about being able to last longer. It's not about being able to ejaculate if you want to. It's actually training you with the proper skills that translate into the bedroom with your partner. So now all of a sudden, we go back to that question. What if masturbation could be useful? What if it could be something you're proud of? What if it became your training ground for epic sex? Even had a guy and his partner, she had fibroids and had a lot of pain during sex. He would come within seconds. She never had an orgasm, just pain. You can imagine how that makes the bedroom rather uninteresting. And he didn't even go through the whole 21 days before he started to notice, and she started to notice, he was lasting longer with himself. And then she was interested, wanted to actually do the practice with him, help him out. Means all of a sudden now they're having a lot more intimacy. They felt super connected. He didn't have to be ashamed of masturbation. And guess what? She started having orgasms during sex and was not having pain because he started to actually embody the experience differently. This is something that's so important. Sexual satisfaction requires, and this is from research that Bridget Freehart as well as Cindy Meston have done, when looking at physiological synchronicity and the relationship of sexual satisfaction in a couple, they find that if you can be self-aware and attuned to your partner, then sexual satisfaction skyrockets, and there's different things such as like heart rate variability that they can actually see the bodies synchronize. In fact, they synchronize so much that typically the female counterpart is just a little bit behind and following the male counterpart physiologically. Fascinating, isn't that? I mean, look at how that experience relates to then all of a sudden being sexually satisfied. And we have this thing out there saying like, oh, the pleasure gap, it can't be solved and it's a heteronormative problem. Well, I mean, I've coached people of all types of sexualities, different genders, etc., and all kinds of body types. And guess what? Penetration isn't just a heteronormative problem. It's a problem of the system of how we go about penetration. And if you could actually turn your masturbation practice into a useful one, even a meditation that gets you more in touch with yourself and gives you the skills to be more attuned to then your partner, you're actually training yourself for a future partner, you're training yourself for a current partner, and you're actually training yourself to feel a ton of pleasure. Last thought. How about we change the word masturbation, manus and stupare, hand and to defile? How about we honor the hand? How about manus and honorare, manuration? What do you think about that title?